You may have heard me say this in 2001, but it don't matter if you win by an inch or a mile. Winning is winning. Now, why do I say this? Well, Brian, I told this to my brother Brian. And I said this because, take it back to 2001 for a second. Just take it back to the zeros. This was during a time where street racing was one of the biggest trends of the zeros and where it was one of the hottest things around. Now, they made a movie about it called The Fast and the Furious. A movie that emphasizes not just late night nitro boost racing, but the value of family from such a perspective and how an underground world such as street racing can praise someone like me as their king, as their emperor. I may not have a crown, I may not have a cape and a crown, but I have a tank, a cross, and a Dodger. Because not only do I have faith and do I have family, but I got fuel. And when you have fuel, you get the confidence enough to say, I want to go 10,000 miles with this. In translation, I want to make 10 more movies about this family and this faith and this fuel. And when you tell the executives this, the executives say, Vin, you're out of your mind. You're insane. But again, nothing is impossible. Nothing is insane. You just gotta have faith. 22 years later, over many missions and against impossible hurdles, I myself, Dominic Toretto, and my family, mi familia, have outsmarted, outnerved, and outdriven every foe in our path, to the point where they become part of my family. Now we must confront the most lethal opponent we have ever faced. A terrifying threat who's actually the son of a drug cartel from Rio de Janeiro from Fast 5. Who's fueled by bloody revenge and who was determined to shatter my family. But I told her, you ain't never gonna be able to break my family. According to Vin Diesel, it was always Paul Walker's dream. Like we said this in 2001. We said that we want to make 10 of these films. We got to make 10 of these films because we wanted to create a milestone, and now we have reached this milestone. But it was always Paul Walker's dream for the Fast and Furious franchise to reach its 10th lap and the long-running dragster that these movies are. But little did we know up until very recently is that Fast X is the first part of a finale trilogy. Leading to the conclusion, this will come as a surprise to the masses of fans and general audiences alike. But I myself, Sterling Steele, had a hunch about how the Fast Saga was categorizing itself in a series of trilogies at the time of F9's release. Like, as of F9 in 2021, I came to the conclusion that, okay, 20-year anniversary, 9 films in, you can chunk those films up into trilogies. Each of those trilogies will have created an aspect that makes up what we know now as the Fast Saga. From 2001 to 2023, the Fast Saga's insane evolution is evident from the contrast between Tokyo Drift and Fast and Furious alone. Not The Fast and the Furious. Before Fast and Furious, it was The Fast and the Furious because it was not a we thing yet. But now this Fast and Furious life we live is a we thing. It is a family affair. So The Fast and the Furious, Too Fast, Too Furious, and Tokyo Drift make up the street racing elements. Fast and Furious, Fast 5, and Fast and Furious 6 give us the action-packed blockbusters. Furious 7, Fate of the Furious, and F9 are the espionage thrillers that put a nitro boost on the high-octane action that was already there. We have seen street race after street race, countless hijackings of 18-wheelers, one crazy law-defying moment after the next. The eternal ridiculousness of action set pieces, albeit when it is cinematic junk food, aka chaos cinema, like the Transformers films. There are some action sequences throughout the saga that are well orchestrated, and there are some that are just sloppy. I believe that F9 was filled with a plethora of sloppy, in-your-face chaos cinema that make up the cinematic junk food that you get full off of. You know, that's still gluttony. If it is gluttonous to eat as much food as you want in large amounts, then it should be gluttonous to binge watch the Fast and Furious movies every day, over and over and over again. Just like binge watching the Transformers movies every day, over and over and over again. If that is considered gluttony, then binge watching these movies ought to be gluttony because it's cinematic junk food, you know what I'm saying? With Fast X, we are in no position of being granted more of the same formulaic, frenzy action that we love so much. Director Louis Leterrier stepped up when Justin Lin stepped down for some very behind the scenes reasons that I won't get into. Knows that because the end of the road is imminent, we are instead given a more grounded story that feels reminiscent on the Fast 5 Days. Because upon this rock, we will race our race. The level of importance within family has remained stationary and will continue to be stationary for the final 2 movies. But it has always felt more spoken than shown to the point of becoming a meme. Why did it take 20 years for this franchise to turn into a meme? Tell me why it took 20 years for the Fast and Furious saga that boasts about family, that boasts and brags about family over beer and Corona and barbecues to turn into a meme. For example, I love when Dominic Toretto seeks out Peter Griffin because he's a family guy. I love when Vin Diesel guest stars on the show with Steve Urkel because family matters. I love it when Vin Diesel gets on the show with Steve Harvey because he's having a family feud. You get the idea. But furthermore, the Fast and Furious saga has this growing tendency of adding star-studded faces for the sake of star power. What is this, Mario Kart? Not to mention some cameos. Too Fast, Too Furious gave us Tyrese and Luda. Tokyo Drift included Bow Wow. Fast and Furious brought us Gal Gadot. Fast 5 is notorious for The Rock's debut, and every film after that, starring him, are the peak Fast and Furious films. Furious 6 introduces Luke Evans as Owen Shaw and features Rita Ora. Furious 7 brings Kurt Russell, Natalie Emanuel, and Jason Statham into the race and features Ronda Rousey and Digimon Hutsu in small roles. Fate of the Furious encrypts Charlize Theron and Scott Eastwood into the Matrix, and F9 sees John Cena, Peacemaker himself, and Yondu Udanta, and Cardi B, join the rally, you know what I'm saying? Although it's a spin-off, Hobbs and Shaw ordains Idris Elba, Aiza Gonzalez, Vanessa Kirby, and features Ryan Reynolds and Kevin Hart into the mix, going to show what the goals of these movies are besides just delivering high-octane action, but trying to expand its family as much as possible. Fast X adds Brie Larson, Captain Marvel herself, Jason Momoa, Aquaman himself, and soon-to-be Lobo, hopefully, because his performance in this movie, I just want to say, his performance in this movie screams Lobo. So James Gunn, if you are watching this, cast Jason Momoa as Lobo in your DCU. And Ratcatcher 2 herself, Daniela Melchior, to the cast. All these additions serve a greater purpose in the Fast lore than just having a cameo fest. I mean, it ain't Fast 9, so it's not just a cameo fest. They have reasons to be here. So Brie Larson's character, Tess, is the daughter of Kurt Russell's Mr. Nobody and the sister of Little Nobody. So what does that make her? Little Miss Nobody? And Daniela Melchior's Isabel is the younger sister of Dom's baby mama, Alina Neves, who was the one that was pregnant with Little B, who we now see in this film as a little bit older. Now, these types of inclusions are more efficient when it ties to a prominent character in the saga, rather than someone like Cardi B's Lisa, that is only the sister to a character from the 4th installment that we should not need to know about. Meanwhile, Fast X puts our central familia out of their comfort zone like never before. That leads to the best suspense in one of these movies since Fate of the Furious, truly testing the limits of the family unit. And this is where Fast X succeeds in the same aspect as Fate. Because although the action that we have come to expect is there, the antagonist and the well-orchestrated revenge play, I'm not just talking about you hurt me, I'ma hurt you back. I'm talking about you hurt me, I'ma shatter your family. I'm talking about you take my millions of dollars, I'ma make you a target for the whole world, to the point where your family gets scattered and there's a division in your unit. You know you're an amazing villain when you can top the one from Fate of the Furious, Cypher. If you thought Charlize Theron Cypher was maniacal for managing to manipulate Dominic Toretto, managing to manipulate the Alpha to turn against his wolf pack, then enter Dante Reyes. Dante Reyes is such a breath of fresh air for this franchise for a number of reasons. With the exception of Cypher, there has never been an out of the shadows threat quite like Dante Reyes. Even though he was never really out of the shadows, he was always there in Fast 5. We just ain't never seen him. He was behind the scenes. But Fast X has the advantage of tying back to, unarguably, amongst popular opinion, the best Fast installment in the series, because that is the bridge between the groundedness and the ridiculousness. Like, before it got to ridiculous proportions like ramp cars and 007 type missions and long plane runways, Fast 5 was sandwiched between those two. And taking the most forgettable aspect of that film, we've seen it time and time again in every buddy action comedy like Bad Boys, where there's that generic drug cartel leader with the sexy Russian wife, but this man ain't had no Russian wife. He had family, but whose family is the one coming out on top in this one? But taking the most forgettable aspect of that film and making it the fiercest X factor of this one. Jason Momoa's Dante Reyes, which again, it screams Lobo. I was driving away from the theater talking about Lobo. Lobo is my favorite character in this film when I was raised. No, he's Dante. But make James Gunn, please, if you're watching this, cast Jason Momoa in your DC universe as Lobo. If some of the Zack Snyder Justice League members aren't coming back, cast him as Lobo, please. If you do not cast him as Lobo, you have done an extreme disservice, no offense. You have done a disservice to that character. But Jason Momoa's Dante Reyes brings a level of flavor and flamboyance that would otherwise be out of place for a series so hardcore. Like, what does a character like Dominic Toretto look like going against somebody who is very much like the Joker? He is the aspect that makes Fast X worthwhile. Like, if Jason Momoa's Dante Reyes wasn't the character that he was in this film, this movie would have probably been as generic and been as blatantly over the top as F9 was. In addition to having such a lively charisma that rivals the calm and collected Cypher, Dante manages to slip in the cracks of the Toretto clan and compadres with an orchestrated revenge plot that sets the course for the majority of the film and the entire finale. You know how the bank vault heist was kind of like the first crazy thing, the first major crazy thing they've done to this whole franchise that had audience go like, well, the scene in this movie that you've seen in the trailers with the wrecking bomb pretty much evokes that type of thing, and it's even admitted by the character Dante. That one event will heavily affect this entire finale trilogy. Let's just put it to you like this. This movie ain't finna end in no beers and barbecues and Corona in the backyard, you know what I'm saying? Because of the movie with the beers and barbecues in the backyard, that means it ain't gonna end like that. Rotten Tomatoes has given it a 55% recommendation at the time of writing this review. But Fast X finally brings the ridiculously high-octane action from 60 to 0 in 3.5 seconds in favor of a neutral narrative that grounds the franchise closer to the first half of the saga and reflects upon the road that we as an audience and the on-screen familia have been traveling down since 2001. So for that, I don't know about y'all, but I'm gonna give it 89 gallons of NOS out of 100. That is all that Dom has to give about the update as far as Mi Familia. But until the 11th and 12th round, keep having faith, keep having family, and get yourself enough fuel so that we can all together reach these final 2 laps in this race. Peace out.